All right, this is just going to be a quick synopsis of time events that I found interesting. This is a prelude to Roman persecution, 70 CE. The Roman army destroyed Jerusalem, killed more than 1 million Jews, took about 100,000 into slavery and captivity, and scattered many from Palestine to other locations in the Roman Empire. 115, 1 million Jews were massacred by Greeks in Alexandria, Egypt. Okay, a lot of history. I know a lot of genocides are covered up from Canada to South America to all over the place. A lot of these get overlooked too, and like the billion of Christians, believers that were killed too and persecuted. So I don't think it should be so overlooked. Year 124, Hadrian banned Jewish religious observance, deported some of the Jews from Judea to North Africa. In 132, Bar Kokhba led 3-year revolts against the Roman Empire. Many Jews accepted him as the Messiah, and then 500,000 Jews were killed, thousands sold in slavery, taken into captivity, and then exiled into Palestine and scattered. The diaspora, and then there was like mini diasporas too. Roman persecution, forbidden to practice circumcision, read the Torah, eat unleavened bread, etc. And then a temple dedicated to Jupiter was erected on the Temple Mount, and a temple of Venus on Golgotha just outside the city. And then it was named Palestinia. The Byzantine era was 325. The Council of Nicaea decided to separate the celebration of Easter from Passover. And they just tried to erase and water down and then eventually move out all of their holidays and anything that had to do with Judaism or anything holy, pretty much. 351, Gallus, which was a Roman ruler of the earth, led a campaign against Jews in Palestine. Julian, the Christians attacked the Jews of Palestine after the death of Julian. 415, the Bishop of Alexandria, St. Cyril, expelled the Jews from Egyptian city. And 418, St. Jerome created the Vulgate translation of the Bible and called it Satan's Fortress. 474, all the synagogues of Babylon were closed. Then there was the medieval anti-Semitism. 535, Justinian I ordered all synagogues closed, forced conversions, and other decrees against the Jews. 661, Muslims built a mosque on the site. 694, 17th Council of Toledo, Spain, defined Jews as serfs of the prince. This was based on Chrysostom, Origen, Jerome, and other church fathers, punishing the Jews into slavery because of their responsibility for killing Jesus. 722, Leo III outlawed Judaism. They were baptized against their will. The ones in Iraq were required to wear a yellow patch. They were exiled from Italy, 855. Then they were forced conversions and massacres in Italy in 932. In 1004, Muslims took the Holy Land, burned down synagogues, forced conversions. 1007, they were killed and forced to convert to Christianity through France. 1012, they were forced to convert in Germany. 1013, they were killed by Berbers in Spain. 1035, 6,000 were massacred in Fez, Morocco, F-E-Z. Then in 1066, 4,000 in Granada were massacred. 1078, Pope Gregory VII decreed that they couldn't hold office or be superiors in the Holy Land, challenging them, calling them Christ killers. And 12,000 in the Rhine Valley were killed in the First Crusade. And this behavior continued for 8 additional crusades until the 9th Crusade in 1272. In 1099, during the First Crusade, they forced all Jews in Jerusalem into a synagogue that they then lit on fire and burned them alive. And they tried to escape. 1121, they were exiled from Flanders, now which is Belgium. In 1130, they were in London, accused of killing a sick man, and then they had to pay 1 million as part of compensation. 1144 was when the blood libels took place. They were in Norwich, England, and accused of drinking blood. 1146, Second Crusades began, and a French monk, Rudolph, called for destruction of all Jews. 1147, Second Crusade. attacked communities everywhere. 1181. Another blood libel occurred in Bury, St. Edmunds, England, and they were held in Paris. 1182, they were expelled from France. 1189, they were massacred in London and took all their possessions, and then their houses were all burned. 1190, they were massacred in the Third Crusade. 1192, a blood libel was in Winchester, England. 1196, 15 were killed in Vienna. 1197, they were killed in Neuss, France. 1206, they were killed in Halle, Germany. 1209, 200 were killed in Béziers province and imprisoned by the king. 1216, Pope Innocent III ordered they wear a badge to distinguish them from other people. 1221, they were killed in Erfurt, Germany. Italy and Sicily, those ones there were required to wear blue badges. So there's yellow and blue. At different periods in time, I think like 4 times, they're required to wear different colored badges. 1225, they were expelled from Cremona and Pavia, Italy. 1227, the Synod of Narbonne required them to wear an oval badge. And this was reestablished in 1930s, and then got changed into the Star of David. 1229, the Spanish Inquisition happened. Pope Innocent VI authorized the use of torture by the inquisitors. 1230, the ones of Wiener Neustadt, Austria, were attacked for 2 weeks and killed and forced to convert in Astorga, Spain. 1232, they were massacred in Marrakesh, Morocco. 1240, Pope Gregory IX ordered the burning of Jewish books. They were expelled from Brittany, France. 1241, the ones in Frankfurt and Maine, Germany, were massacred and the Jewish quarters destroyed. They were killed in Bohemia by invading Tartars, and in Spain were forced to convert. 1242, 24 wagons loaded with copies of Jewish books were burned in Paris. 1243, the ones of Belitz, Germany, were burned to death in the first libel of ritual desecration of the host of communion. I'm not sure what that one's about, but 1244, Pope Innocent IV ordered more burnings of books. 1247, Jews were killed and forced to convert to Islam in Meknes, Morocco. 1250, the ones of Tunisia were required to wear a badge by Muslim rulers. 1255, the Jews of England were killed after another blood libel in Lincoln. The Jews of Rome were required to wear badges in 1259. The ones in Mainz, Germany were required the same thing. 1264, the Jews of Arnstadt, Germany, were attacked and massacred. The Synod of Vienna ordered Jews to wear horned hats, and Thomas Aquinas said that they should be slaves. 1269, the Jews of Poland, Austria, and Silesia were required to wear special hats. In 1275, Jews of Worcester, England, were expelled. 1277, the Jews of Pamplona, Spain, were attacked and all their houses burned. 1278, Pope Nicholas III ordered them to convert. 1281, they were killed after another blood libel in Mainz, Germany. 1283, a blood libel in Mainz and Bacharach, Germany, and many were killed in a massacre. 1287, 500 were killed in Rhineland in revenge after the unexplained death of Werner of Oberwessel, which they blamed on them. In 1288, they were expelled from Anjou, then Le Mans, France. 1290, they were expelled from England. 16,000 left the country. The Jews of Naples, Bari, and other countries in Italy were massacred or underwent forced conversions. 1294, they were killed and the rest expelled from Bern, Switzerland. In 1298, 100,000 were massacred in a few years in Germany after the Rindfleisch massacres, which began as a revenge for ritual blood libel accusations. Then they were massacred in Wiener Neustadt, Ifhauben, and Morgentheim, Austria, and in Würzburg and Bischofsheim, Germany. They were persecuted in Austria, Bavaria, and Franconia. 140 communities were destroyed and burned. 1303, Jews of Barcelona were ordered to kneel to Catholic priests. Jews of Egypt were forced to convert to Islam, and then they had them wear yellow turbans even. 1306, they were expelled from France and property confiscated. 100,000 were exiled from France and left with the clothes and on their backs and just the food that they had. In 1309, 110 were killed in Born, Netherlands. 1312, many were killed in Fürstenfeld and Judenburg, Austria. 1320, 120 towns were attacked and burned across France in the Crusades, and all were expelled from Milan. 1321, 160 were burned to death on Rosh Hashanah in France, accused of poisoning wells. In Guyenne, France, they were accused of inciting criminals to poison wells. And then 5,000 were burned alive at the stake alone. 1322, they were expelled from parts of France. 1328, 6,000 were killed in the province of Navarre, Spain, or Navarre. 1332, 300 were killed after another blood libel when a mob set a synagogue in Oberlingen, Germany on fire. And in 1336, 120 communities were ravaged by armed letter bands in Germany and Alsace. 1,500 were killed in Ribeauville, and the Jews of Deggendorf were killed after a ritual desecration in libel. Then many were killed in Bohemia, burned at the stake in Pulkow, Austria. Ships from the Far East carried rats into Mediterranean ports, and then these rats carried Black Death. And fleas spread the disease from rats to humans, and then the plague was a pandemic, and the germs spread from human to human. And then in 5 years, it reached like 25 million deaths. And then England took 2 centuries for its population levels to recover from the plague. And people noted a lower death toll percentage in Jewish communities, likely due to kosher-ness and cleanliness of their dietary laws and sanitary ways. So then people were saying, oh, Satan protects these people, and they were paying back the devil by poisoning wells. And so they tortured them, murdered them, burned them alive. 12,000 in Bavaria, 3,000 in Erfurt, 2,000 in Rue Brulaire, 160 burned alive in mass graves near Tours, 2,000 in Strasbourg, 6,000 in Mainz, and 400 in Worms, and many other areas. 1349, 300 communities were destroyed, thousands killed across Europe in the Black Death massacres. 12,000 were executed in Toledo, Spain. 120 were killed by Christian and Muslim mobs in Spain. Hundreds were killed in Catalonia and a day after Tisha B'Av, and then many were killed in a fire after rioting in Breslau, Silesia, and then they were expelled from Hungary. Then in Barcelona, they were accused of ritual desecration and held prisoners for 3 days. They were killed in a civil war in Spain, Castile, Spain, 8,000 and killed in Toledo, burned alive in ritual desecrations in Brussels, Belgium, 1377, in Huesca, Spain, were tortured and burned to death in ritual desecration libels again. 1380, Jews of Paris were killed by anti-Jewish rioters. 50,000 were killed in Spain and Portugal. 200,000 Castilian Jews converted to spare their lives, and they were called Marranos, or Conversos. Then persecutions began in Seville and in 70 other Jewish communities throughout Spain. Jews of Venice were required to wear yellow badges. 1394, they were exiled for the second time from France and expelled from there. Then expelled from Basel, Switzerland. Then they were massacred in Syria by Tartar invaders, and 77 were killed in riots in Prague. 30 were burned at the stake in a blood libel in Schaffhausen, Switzerland. In 1404, many were killed in Strasbourg, Austria, in a desecration libel. Then on the island of Corfu, they were required to wear yellow badges. Then in Austria, they were massacred, tortured, property confiscated, forced conversions. 48 in Syria were burned, and then the rest were expelled by a new Christian sect called the Hussites. And then the Jews of Bohemia were massacred by the Hussites. Jews expelled from Cologne, Germany, Iglau, Bohemia, Bern, Switzerland, Fribourg, Switzerland, Sicily. 15 were burned to death and expelled from Constance, Lindau, and Ravensburg. Germany Jews expelled from Meissen and Thuringia in Germany and from Eger, Bohemia. Eger. Then in Majorca, another blood libel. Then Augsburg, Germany, they're required to wear yellow badges again. 1436, they were expelled from Zurich, Switzerland, forbidden to have social contact with non-Jews by Pope Nicholas V. Then they were ordered to wear special badges in Hanover, Germany, and Arnhem, Holland. 41 were burned at the stake in Breslau, Silesia. The rest were expelled in a ritual desecration libel. The Franciscan monk Capistrano persuaded the King of Poland to terminate all Jewish civil rights. Renaissance time period, 1454. Many were killed in riots in Krakow, Poland, expelled in Brno and other cities in Moravia, expelled from Hildesheim, Germany, expelled from Erfurt, Germany. 60 were killed in rioting in Carpentras, France. They were expelled from Mainz, Germany. They were attacked in Seville, Spain. 30 were killed in Krakow, massacred in a revolt in Fez, Morocco. Arnstadt, Germany, many were killed, forced to run humiliating races before crowds during carnivals. And then this became an annual event for the next 200 years. 18 were burned to death in a blood libel in Nuremberg, Germany. 1468, the ones in Landau, Germany, were forced to wear yellow badges. 1470, they were expelled from the province of Baden. They were expelled from Schaffhausen, Switzerland. The Jews of Mühlhausen were required to wear yellow badges. 1474, 360 were killed in a massacre in Sicily and Segovia, Spain. Then they were tortured and killed in a blood libel in Trent, Italy. They were expelled from Tübingen, Germany, and from Nancy and the whole Duchy of Lorraine, France area. Then they were expelled from Schlestadt, Germany. Then the Inquisitions kept expanding. They were expelled from the province of Andalusia, isolating the Marranos, and from Warsaw, Poland, and Mainz, Germany. They were attacked in riots in Provence, France, and killed. Inquisitions burning 22 Marranos in Parapagan, France, and then they were expelled from Perugian, Gubbio, and Vicenza, Italy. 16 were burned at the stake in Toledo. 40 Marranos were burned at the stake, and 100 bodies exhumed and burned in Toledo, Spain. And then 700 Marranos burned by the Inquisition. 1489, they were attacked in Provence, France. Some were forcibly converted. The rest were expelled from Lucca, Italy. 422 Marranos burned in Toledo, Spain, expelled from Geneva, Switzerland, and for the third time in Heilbronn, Germany. And then in 1491, they were expelled from Thurgau, Switzerland, Ravenna, Italy, and all synagogues were burned. They were expelled from Spain and Italy, 100,000 to 300,000 expelled from Spain. 27 were burned in Mecklenburg, a region of Germany. They had to practice Judaism in secret. Expulsions took place in all Seneca and Silesia between Germany and Poland. Then in 1493, there was refugees from Spain expelled from Perpignan, France. 16 Jews were killed in Turnau, Slovakia, in another blood libel. They were expelled from camps San Pietro and Brescia, Italy, and from Ards, France. They were expelled from Lithuania. Most Jews of Cosenza, Italy, were forced to become baptized. The ones allowed to return to Austria were again expelled to the provinces of Carinthia and Styria. And then an expulsion was ordered in Portugal, giving them a year to convert or leave. Then torture happened. 1497, first day of Passover, many Jewish children were captured. The government lured 20,000 to Lisbon Palace and denied them food and water. They were expelled from Navarre, a province on the French border with Spain, and from Rhodes, which was an island. And then they were expelled from Nuremberg, Germany, Salzburg, Austria. 75 burned at the stake in Avila, Spain. And the bones of 26 were exhumed and burned. 1502, refugees from Spain were burned at the stake in Dubrovnik, Yugoslavia. 1504, they were expelled from Pilsen, Bohemia. Then from Orange, France. Then 2,000 Marranos were killed in Lisbon. 1510, they were expelled from Colmar, Alsace, and Cottbus, Germany. Naples, Italy. 38 burned at the stake in Berlin in a ritual desecration libel, and the rest were expelled from Brandenburg. Then they were expelled from Laibach, Slovenia, and Genoa, Italy, and then Lowicz, Poland. And the governor of the Republic of Venice decided they would be permitted to live in one area south of Girolamo called the Ghetto Novo. So that was like a Jewish ghetto in Europe. And then that got reformed in the 30s. And then the Reformation, 1517, they were required to wear a yellow patch in Algeria. Then the ones in Hebron were attacked and killed. Many fled. They were expelled from Württemberg, Germany, and Regensburg, Bavaria. Martin Luther distributed his essay at that time against the Jews. 1525, the ones of Carpentras, France, were ordered by Pope Clement VII to wear yellow hats. And then in 1526, they were expelled from Hungary. 30 were burned to death in Posting, Slovakia, and another blood libel, and then the rest were captured. And more expulsions. 1530, they were required to wear yellow badges. Expelled from Constance, Germany. They were massacred in Tlemcen, Algeria. 1500 were enslaved by the Spanish. They were killed in Tunis and captured and sold as slaves when invaders sacked the city in 1535. 1537, they were killed in Tyrnau, Slovakia, in a blood libel. Portuguese inquisitions happened then, seeking out the Marranos, and some were burnt to death in Lisbon. And then 1,200 were burned to death and exiled from Naples. Then they were massacred in Bohemia because an order was put out issuing this, and they resettled in Naples, and then they were expelled again. And then they were expelled from Mühlenhausen, Germany, and other towns in the provinces, thanks to Martin Luther. And then they were killed in Treviso, Italy, anti-Jewish riots. Many fled. They were expelled from Genoa. The ones in Wrocław, Poland, were attacked by the Tartars who invaded the town. And some people helped them, and even some monks that helped them, they were also burned alive too. Then Pope Julius III ordered burning of their books and cessation of printing. And then on Rosh Hashanah, the Inquisition had a massive burning of their books. And Pope Paul IV ordered them to live in ghettos, wear yellow hats, and the women had to wear yellow handkerchiefs. And they weren't allowed to own property outside the ghetto. 3,000 people were forced to live on like less than 7 acres of land together. And then 26 Portuguese Marranos who returned to Judaism were burned to death in Ancona, Italy. Then the ones in Bohemia returned after the last expulsion, and then they were expelled again from all the surrounding cities. Then 10,000 Jewish books were burned in Cremona, Italy, under the Inquisition. 30 Jews of Polotsk, Lithuania, were drowned in the Davinia River for refusing to be baptized. Jewish men were required to wear yellow hats in Lithuania, the women yellow handkerchiefs. Later on in 1566, Jews were expelled from the rest of Genoa and then expelled from all the papal states. And anti-Jewish riots were in Berlin everywhere. Marranos, Judaizers, and people practicing Judaism were prosecuted in Mexico as part of the Mexican Inquisition too, and burned to death throughout Mexico. They were expelled from Berlin and the whole province of Brandenburg, Germany. 20 were killed in anti-Jewish riots in Posen, Poland. And the ones in Rome had forced conversions. And then they were expelled from Holland. Those who returned to Koken, Germany, were expelled again. And they were expelled from German provinces. They were expelled from Petrograd, Poland, another blood libel. The ones of Vilna, Poland, were attacked and their houses and shops plundered. They were massacred in Bucharest when locals revolted against the Ottoman Empire. Church authorities confiscated and burned holy books. 7 Jews were hanged in Mantua, Italy in 1602. And then the ones in Vicence, Moravia were massacred. The ones in Frankfurt were attacked and forced to leave the city. The Jews of Posen were expelled from a temporary settlement outside the city. And then more burnings. German troops expelled the ones in Mantua, Italy, confiscated all possessions, 18 children, forced conversions. Then in Prague, 1635, the ones in Vilna, Poland were attacked and their houses taken. A Spanish nobleman named Lepo de Vera Alcron converted to Judaism and then was arrested and tried before the Inquisition too. So people were tortured just for having books or anything. So it left a deep impression on Murano, Spain, primarily. And then Rabbi Yitzhak de Castro Tardis was burned alive in Lisbon for teaching Judaism to Muranos in Portuguese Brazil. And then he cried out, Shema Yisrael, at his death. And that was Muranos. Then the Cossacks rebelled against Polish rule, which was led by Bogdan Khmelnytsky, and they attempted to establish an independent Ukraine. And then the Cossack forces attacked the Jews, tortured many, and massacred tens of thousands, and then they mutilated their remains. 300 communities were destroyed, then 100,000 to 300 were killed in pogroms in Poland, Lithuania. Poland, Lithuania became a safe haven for Jews because these areas were just like scenes of massive Jewish devastations, really. So then 6,000 were killed in Niemierów, Poland, 1,000 tortured and killed in Tulkin, Poland, 10,000 in Polonoi, Poland, 3,000 in Konstanów, Poland, 4,000 of Dubno, Poland were killed when the Poles would not allow them to seek refuge from the Cossacks in a fortress. Then the ones in Nierol, Poland were drowned or killed in the synagogues, and then they set the synagogues on fire, and 12,000 died. Muranos ones were burned to death in Mexico as part of the Mexican Inquisition in 1650. Many were killed in Jassy, Moldavia by Cossacks, and the rest expelled after a blood libel in Kazan, Bohemia. Then they were killed in Bar, Ukraine by Cossacks and Tartars, and in Jassy, Moldavia by Cossacks. Then they were killed in Russian and Swedish invasions of Poland, and 25,000 were killed in Vilna, Poland by Russian soldiers. Then 3,000 were killed in Bykov, Poland, Lithuania, and Russians captured towns. Communities fled Coke in India also when the Portuguese rulers attacked them and plundered their property. And then many were massacred in Wrocław, Poland, in another Cossack invasion. And then the ones in Podhajec, Poland, were massacred, and the Tartars invaded again. And then they put them in the carnivals again to be humiliated. And then they were expelled from Morocco again. Then the Jews were expelled from Austria, including the ones who had settled there from the Chelnitsky massacres in Poland. And then they were expelled from Yemen, where many synagogues were demolished. Then they were killed in Krakow, Poland, in anti-Jewish riots. And then the ones in Uhorsky Brod, Moravia, were killed. And then many were killed during the Austrian siege of Budapest. And then many were killed in Posen and Vilna in the rioting. Then the Enlightenment era, the 1700s, the ones of Zirkow, Poland, were attacked at the start of the Haymarket massacres. They were killed and displaced during unsuccessful Hungarian revolutions. The ones of Krotosin, Poland, were attacked and property looted. The ones in Lisa, Poland, were attacked and plundered by Russian soldiers, and whole towns were burned. The ones in Lisa were accused of spreading the plague and were expelled from Groningen, Netherlands. The ones in Posen, Poland, were attacked. The ones in Budapest were attacked and their homes taken. Arabs broke into the Ashkenazi synagogues in Jerusalem and burned all Torah scrolls. The Jews were forced to flee and the synagogues were ruined. The Jews were attacked in Jassy, Moldavia after a blood libel. Synagogues desecrated again. 2 brothers, one a rabbi and the other a head of a yeshiva school, were tortured and burned in Lvov, Poland, on the eve of Shavuot. 1734, 27 were massacred in Korsu, Poland by roaming Haidamacz bands. Haidamacz. Many Jews were imprisoned and tortured in the blood libel in Posen again, then tortured and killed in Yaroslav, Poland, and then expelled from most of Russia. They were massacred in Rodnice, Bohemia, expelled from Prague by a decree by the Empress Maria Theresa of Austria, and expelled from Budapest, an order from the Empress at the time. Then in Breslau, Silesia, they were killed in riots, and then following the expulsion. And then there was also an explosion of a gunpowder storehouse. 11 were skinned alive and killed in 1753, and 13 were forced to convert. Another blood libel in Zhytomyr, Poland. They were expelled from the region of Courland, Latvia. They were killed in Mogilev, Podolsky, Poland, and Wojsławice, Poland. Another blood libel. 7 killed in Kalisz, Poland, in a blood libel. The Haidamacz killed many in Polish Ukrainian towns, and thousands in Uman were massacred in their synagogues and burned together alive. And then before this, they came in and desecrated the Torah scrolls again. They were expelled from Hodonin, Moravia by Empress Maria Theresa, and expelled from Kitzingen, Germany. Then the ones in Austria were forced to choose German-sounding names. And then in Warsaw, they were attacked by rioters, and the ones in Florence were attacked by mobs because they were granted some civil rights. And many in Orphan, Morocco, chose to be burned alive rather than convert to Islam. So those were martyrs. And many Jews were imprisoned, and synagogues closed in France during the Reign of Terror after the French Revolution. And then the books in Strasbourg were confiscated and burned, and the yeshiva closed. Then they were killed by rioters in Vilna and Warsaw in the Polish rebellion against Russia. And then Napoleon's armies withdrew from Italy, and the Jews of Pesaro were attacked, killed, and then their synagogues plundered yet again. 128 were killed in anti-Jewish riots in Bucharest after another blood libel. A Russian edict prohibited them from living in villages. And in 1806, the Jesuit priest Abbe Baruel wrote a treatise blaming the Masonic order for the French Revolution and issued a letter alleging the Jews were actually the guilty party, and that triggered a belief. Then they were attacked and synagogues burned in the Greek revolutionaries of Galati, Romania. Then anti-Jewish riots broke out in Würzburg, Germany, and Austria issued a law that required all rabbis to study philosophy and preach in the local language. And banned their books. In 1821, hundreds were killed in Jassy, Moldavia, a Greek revolt for the Turkish Empire. 5,000 were killed in Greece in this revolt, and they were attacked in Odessa, Russia. The expulsion of Jews from Russia, villages resumed, and 60 were killed in Bucharest on Piram by Turkish soldiers. The Jews were expelled from villages around Mogilev and Vitebsk, Russia, removed from cities. And then in 1827, the Tsar Nicholas I of Russia issued a decree during Elul that made Jews between 12 and 25 drafted into the military. And then they were kidnapping children, and mostly from poor families. And a lot were tortured, and a lot converted at that time too. Then in 1829, they were expelled from Kiev and Russian cities like Nikolaev and Sevastopol. And then they were killed in Oshmyny, Lithuania. Russian soldiers started fires after the Polish rebellions. Hundreds were arrested and tortured in Russia. Then they had forced labor sentences. And then in Meshed, Persia, many were killed in attacks and then forced to convert to Islam. They were arrested in blood libels in Damascus. 60 children were tortured. More converted to Islam. Pius IX restored all previous restrictions against the Jews in 1846. And then the Russian government issued decrees about what they could wear and what economic class they were in. And then they were attacked by a mob in Tunisia and killed for insulting Islam. Edgardo Mortara was kidnapped by age 6 from Roman Catholic officials. 1859, many were killed in an attack by rioters in Galati, Romania. And then attacked again in Odessa, Russia. The Spanish attacked them in Spain. Many Jews fled to Morocco, and the Jews of Tetouan, Morocco, were then massacred. General Ulysses S. Grant approved an order expelling them from Tennessee 2 weeks before Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation during the U.S. Civil War. Jews in North Africa and Tunis and Tripoli were massacred on Yom Kippur by insurgent tribes. 1867, they were expelled from villages in Romania and then drowned in the Danube River, and the remainder harassed with their laws. Then they were attacked in riots in Odessa during Passover. 1881, Tsar Alexander II made reforms in Russia and was assassinated by revolutionaries, and then the Jews were to blame for that too. So the pogroms broke out in Russia and swept across many areas, and many desecrations to more Jewish synagogues, properties, Torah scrolls. 1882, they were attacked in Algiers in rioting, and many were killed in synagogues plundered, Torah scrolls desecrated. Blamed for all economic exploitation. Many laws were made with discriminatory provisions. They were expelled from villages, rural settlements, allowed to live only in a certain town. Another blood libel happened in Tisza Eszlar, Hungary. More rioting. 1891, they were expelled from Moscow, and 30,000 were forced to sell their properties and leave. Captain Alfred Dreyfus of the French staff was convicted of treason. He received a life sentence on Devil's Island off the coast of South America. The French government was aware that a Major Esterhazy was guilty, and the church, government, and army united to suppress the truth because they found a piece of paper in a wastebasket. Forged. This paper was actually forged by anti-Semitic officers. So they just hung him for that. And then 10 years, the French government fell. Then Dreyfus was declared innocent. So his affair was worldwide. And then a book was actually wrote about that. Then Jews were attacked in Monteganem, Algeria, and in pogrom in Bucharest in Romania. Leopold Hilsner was sentenced to death in Bohemia, another blood libel, and then life imprisonment. And then early 20th century, we get to 1903. In Russia, Jews were killed because a Christian child was found dead, so they blamed it on them. And then 5,000 soldiers in the town did nothing while all the violence ensued. And then when the smoke cleared, 49 Jews were killed, 500 injured, 700 homes were burned, 600 businesses and shops looted, 2,000 families left homeless. And it was later found out that this child had been killed by its own relative. And then a suicide that happened was unrelated to the Jews too. So they'd blame them like if anything bad happened in certain areas. And then in 1905, after losing the war with Japan, Russia was stirring with revolutionary agitation, and the Tsar was establishing a parliament. And then government officials and supporters of the Tsar sought to divert the attention of the masses and direct it towards the Jews. So 800 were then killed too in less than 2 years, and 25 in Zhytomyr. 120 were killed in Yekaterinslav. 40 in Simferopol, Crimea, 50 in Rakitsa, and 300 in Odessa. The Okhrana, the Russian secret police at the reign of Tsar Nicholas II, converted anti-Semitic literature into conspiracy documents, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. A Russian Orthodox priest, Sigurus Nilis, published it in 1905. These were Tsarist programs that started in 1905. And then 70 Jews were killed and 75 more injured in a pogrom in Bialystok, Russia, and 30 were killed in Sidlis, Russia. 30 were killed and 250 women and children abducted in riots in Casablanca, Morocco. Okay, so then after World War I, during 1914, 33 were killed in Kalisz, Poland. 600 moved from the western border of Russia toward the interior. 100,000 died of exposure or starvation. 85,000 living in Palestine under Turkish rule. Thousands died then. And then the Russian Revolution began, the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917. 200,000 murdered in the Ukraine alone. And the Ukrainians established independence from Russia, and the Jews were massacred for more than 2 years in pogroms from both sides. 525 communities attacked, 60,000 were killed, more wounded. 90 were killed in Novgorod, Seversk, Ukraine, by the Red Russian Army retreating from the Germans, and 70 were killed in Lvov, Lemberg, Poland, in a pogrom. 1,700 were killed by Ukrainian nationalists in a 4-hour pogrom in Proskurov. 80 killed in Zhytomyr, Ukraine. 30 were executed by Polish in Prinsk. 2 were killed in Kalisz, Poland. 700 of Kyrgyzstan, Ukraine, were killed by Cossacks. 250 were killed by Russian White Army. 400 were killed by peasant bands in a pogrom in Trostianets, Ukraine. 317 killed in another Zhytomyr, Ukraine. 170 in Tulkin, Ukraine. 80 by the Polish troops in Vilna, Poland. 40 massacred in Bogoslav, Ukraine, by the Russian White Army. 36 of Kiev executed by Petyurar's Ukrainian army. 1,500 by the Russian White Army in Fastov, Ukraine. 1920, Arab nationalists attacked many new settlements in northern Palestine, and a number of defenders were killed. 5 were killed in during Pesach in an Arab attack. So it was an attack to eradicate any distinctiveness of Jews. And then a special government Jewish section was established with help of police and internal security forces to close down synagogues, all places of learning. No religious observance, ritual slaughters, and then people risked their lives to teach at this time. 1920, the defeat of Germany in World War I and economic difficulties were blamed by Jewish influence. And then, of course, Mein Kampf came out and all that lovely stuff. And then 47 were killed in Arab riots in Jaffa, Palestine, and 4 defending Petach Tikva from an Arab attack. 25 were killed and wounded by the French Muslim population of Constantine, Algeria. 18 were killed in Arab riots in Tel Aviv, and then unrest happened for 3 years. The Arab revolts, Jewish immigration under British mandates, and 500 were killed in Jewish communities in Hebron ceased to exist. And then 3 were killed, 60 wounded in Przyczek, Poland. 2 were killed in a bomb attack in Temesvar, Romania. And then in World War II, in the 30s, they were attacked in Poland and expelled from Italy and Mussolini, Nazi governments, Austria. 36 and many hundreds took their own lives. It was like a massive countrywide program that swept through everywhere. And then 30,000 arrested, the concentration camps, 300 synagogues burnt, properties destroyed, Torah scrolls desecrated, same thing. Cemeteries ruined. They love to ruin their history and their cemeteries. This program was called Kristallnacht because of all the broken glass. I think that's another reason why they break the glass at weddings. It should be. And then Hitler indicated there would be a war and that all the Jews of Europe would be exterminated. And then the British government announced their new politics in Palestine, restricting all Jewish immigration, and German ships arrived in Cuba, and 1,000 Jews fleeing Europe were there. They weren't permitted to disembark. No country would agree to accept them, and they were returned to Europe. And only 287 survived World War II. Germany began World War II by invading Poland. 500 were killed in Przemysl, Poland, on Rosh Hashanah. And Ostrov Mazowietka, Poland, was a border between Germany and Russian armies. And then 560 out of 7,000 who didn't escape to the Russian side were killed. And then they used the Polish Jews for slave labor. And then the Petrograd, Poland ones were put into ghettos in Czeswan 15. This was a campaign to starve them and start killing them. Then they transported them from villages to ghettos and instituted systematic killing. More camps opened, like 140,000 prisoners went here and there. And 120 were killed in palm grounds in Bucharest, 120 to 180 in Baghdad on the first day of Shavuot, 1941. All properties confiscated. They had to wear the yellow badges. Treaties broken. Germans broke treaties with Russia and then attacked. And Lithuanians entered Vilna. Nazis rounded up, killed 35,000 in the Ponary forest. 100,000 were killed there. 1,000 men of Augustau, Poland were killed on Savan 27. The ones in Kovno, Lithuania were massacred by Lithuanian Nazi sympathizers on Tammuz the 1st. 800 were killed by Romanian troops in Nova Silesia, Bessarabia, Russia. 12,000 killed in Jasny, Romania. And then a 2-day massacre happened. And then 1,000 were burned in a synagogue in Białystok, Poland. 3,300 were killed there. And then 5,000 were killed outside Brest-Litovsk. 400 killed in Drogobyk, Ukraine. 3,000 in a fortress outside of Lutsk, Poland. 5,000 in Tarnopol, Poland. And German and Romanian troops captured them in Chernovitz, Romania from the Russians and massacred 2,000. And then 200 were killed in Zorko, Poland. And German and Romanian troops shot 2,000 in Hotin, Bessarabia, Russia. 1,200 were killed in Slonim, Poland. 3,000 on the port town of Labeva, Latvia, at a lighthouse. 7,000 were killed outside Oshmiany, Lithuania. And then 900 in Vilkošvik, Lithuania. 400 on Av the 8th. And then they killed 500 in Kishinev, Russia. 3,000 in Ostraha, Poland. 1,000 in Krovno, Lithuania. 1,500 in Zambrów, Poland. 1,000 were killed there two weeks later. 350 in the outskirts of Korets, Poland. 1,400 near Titkin, Poland. 7,000 in Marjampole, Lithuania. And then in 2,500 in Ostraha, Poland. 1,700 in Radomyśl, Poland. 9,000 in Slonim, Poland. And then people escaped in large pits, but large pits were thrown back. Well, I should say they made large pits. And a lot of people, they tried to leave and then they'd have to come back. They had ghetto hospitals set up, but then those hospitals or any refuge places were seized by the Nazis. They didn't really have anywhere to go. They returned to the pits and then they'd end up getting shot. There's 30,000 in Zhytomyr, Russia, and 28,000 of the vicinity of Vinnytsia, Russia, were killed in Rosh Hashanah on Tishrei 8. They machine gunned 34,000 on the outskirts of Kiev, on the ravine of Babi Yar. Then they were buried. Many were still alive. The total number, there was 100,000. 30,000 in Berdichkev, Russia. 500 outside Peremyshny, Ukraine. 10,000 in the cemeteries of Stanislav, Poland. Legionnaires killed 8,000 on Tishrei the 25th, and then another 40,000 in the next 10 days. 2,500 were killed outside Kosovo, Poland. and 1,700 in Kadanov, Russia, 3,000 in Ostraha, Poland, and 4,000 in Kletsk, Lithuania, 5,000 in Neshvish, Lithuania, 2,500 in Vnora, Poland, 18,000 of Rovno, Poland, machine gunned down in a forest, 12,000 from the ghetto of Minsk, Russia, 5,000 2 weeks later. Then they killed 1,500 in Mir, Russia, 800 in Zalewski, Poland, and 700 from Lubavitch, Russia. And then the ones in Riga, Latvia were shot to death in a forest. 16,000 were killed a week later. Then 1,500 were killed in Borislav, Poland forest. 400 in Novogrodek, Russia, were killed in Libavi, Latvia, on Hanukkah. And then 900 outside of Zobolatov, Ukraine, on the last days of Hanukkah. Then 15,000 in Drobitsky Yar outside Kharkov, Russia, in Tibet and Shavat. 1,400 of Novi Sad, Yugoslavia, shot and dumped in the icy waters of the Danube. 3,000 were killed in Bralov, Russia. Then they sank the Struma in the Black Sea, a ship which had 769 Jewish refugees on it. And then the British turned back from the shores of Palestine, and the Nazis killed several thousand Jews, orphans. Minsk, Russia, 1,500 were killed on Purim. In Dolhano, Poland, 800 in Radoszkowiki, Poland, 1,000 in Ilya, Poland, 2,000 outside Rogocin, Poland. Horodenka, 1,500 were killed during Pesach. And then 900 in Kiev, Poland. They set fire to their houses and proclaimed the Crimean Peninsula, where 60,000 had lived, to be Jew-free. Then they were shot. 1,000 were shot in the forest in Tempolo, Poland. 2,800 in Donetsk, Ukraine. And then the ones in Dokshitz, Poland, were taken outside the town and killed. 2,000 from Radin, Lithuania, were killed. 2,200 were killed in Koretz, Poland. 2,500 in Dolhano, Poland. And 1,500 in Rodzi Willow, Poland. 4,000 in Corbin, Poland. 3,000 by the Nazis in Bratslav, Poland. And then they accelerated the extermination of any left in Poland by exhaust fumes and gassing rooms, cremations, experimentations. So the death camps were mainly in Treblinka, Majdanek, Belzec, Sobibor, Kolno, and Auschwitz. And then they operated many areas, and just they would keep setting fire to the ghettos, killing like 1,500 again. And 2,500 were then again killed outside Głubokuje, Poland, and 5,000 in Rovno, Poland. And then Dutch Jews started arriving in Auschwitz, and Heinrich Himmler supervised their gassing. 1,000 in the ghetto of Kletsk, Lithuania. They set fire to them on Av 7, and then deportations from Warsaw Ghetto happened, and then there's just assembly points and deportations to the Treblinka death camps. And then in Lviv, Poland, 10,000 in Minsk were massacred, 5,000 in Novgorod, Russia, 40,000 of Lvov, Lemberg, in 2 weeks commencing on Av 27. 700 in Gorlitz, Poland, on Rosh Hodesh. Elul, 600 were killed in Drobkich, Poland, and then 17,000 were killed on a hill outside of Lutsk, Poland. 1,000 in Minsk, Mazowiecki, Poland. 500 children, sick and elderly, were killed in Kortskow, Poland. Thousands of others were transported to death camps. 4,000 were killed in the prison courtyards of Ludmir, Poland alone, and another 14,000 were killed within 2 weeks outside of that town. And then 1,000 in Ziolotski, Poland. Thousands more deported. 90,000 were deported from Warsaw. 300,000 deportations and killings in 53 days. 3,000 of Brennowitz, Poland, Lithuania. were killed on Yom Kippur. 300 children were shot. And orphanages, ransacked Jewish hospitals, homes for elderly. 6,000 were sent to the Belzec death camp, and 16,000 in Pinsk, Russia, were killed the following day, and the last 3,000 were killed on Tevet the 9th. In 1943, 250 children and elderly people were shot in Zetsukawa, Poland. Hundreds were shot in Radomsk, Poland, resisting deportation. 10,000 killed in Stanislav, 1,500 in Minsk. 2,500 of Buksnak were killed outside the town that same day, and 600 women, children, and elderly in the Borislav city slaughterhouses. 2,000 in the Krakow ghetto were killed on Adar II, and 8,000 were sent to death camps, 900 killed in the cemeteries of Sambor, Poland, and they transported 44,000 of Salonika, Greece, to the death camps. 127 of the Częstochowa, Poland, were killed, and 750 were killed outside Skalat, Poland. 660 in Skalat, 1,000 in the cemetery of Stry, Poland, 3,000 in the cemetery of Tlusk, Poland, and 1,000 on Stavan 3 happened too. So the remaining Jews in the ghetto of Lvov were killed in a 6-day massacre. 4,000 Jews of Desna, Lithuania, killed outside the town. 5,000 in Kamenka, Bugskaya, Poland. 500 in the cemetery of Częstochowa. So then the Nazis invade Hungary and keep deportation going. 300,000 were killed in 3 months. And from the community of Kania, Crete, to boats, sinking boats. So a lot happened in this war. And 1945, Nazi Germany was conquered. World War II ended. The camps were liberated. Many surviving died from weakness and disease. And then they couldn't digest food after starving. So after the war, 42 who had survived were killed in a pogrom in Kielce, Poland. And the United Nations agreed to establish a Jewish state. And of course, the Arabs didn't approve of that plan. And the Jews of Aleppo, Syria were attacked and all synagogues destroyed. 6,000 fled the country. On Tevet 16, a ship full of Jewish immigrants arrived in Israel and was driven away by the British. And then many were killed with a bomb in the center of Jerusalem in 1948. And then the British mandate expired. And the state of Israel was declared. 5 Arab armies invaded to push the Jews into the sea. Then 20 were killed in Cairo, where a bomb was thrown. And then 100 in sporadic riots here and there. And most were attacked by mobs in Plugian, Lithuania. Another blood libel that, of course, had to happen on their holiday, Rosh Hashanah. And then the War for Independence happened in 1950. The government of Iraq expelled 110,000 Jews and seized their property. Then 26 were killed by Russian authorities as part of the pogrom. Then an increasing number were being killed in Israel, 1,300 by 1949 by Arab infiltrators, mainly from Egypt. And then delegates from Arab countries would meet in Egypt and establish the Palestinian Liberation Organization to carry out terrorist attacks. And Al-Fatah was established. 9 Jews were publicly executed in Damascus in 1969. And Libya ordered confiscation of all property on the fast of Tammuz the 17th. And they hijacked aircrafts and held passengers hostage until the demands were met by the PLO. 10 Jews were arrested in Russia on Tish B'Av and went to jail because they were commemorating this tragic day by visiting Babi Yar in 1971. Jewish athletes were killed by terrorists during Olympic Games. They continued their attacks, not just there, but around the world. And then riots broke out in Brooklyn. A Black child was killed in a car accident by a member of a Jewish community there. And a young Jewish student visiting from Melbourne was killed. 3 days, the police stood by as anti-Jewish rioters attacked Jews and their property in a mixed neighborhood of blacks in Lubavitch Ker Hasidim. They were cautious not to retaliate with violence, and most of the media persisted in portraying the event as Jews and blacks fighting together. In 92, that happened. So the media likes to exploit a lot of things and then spin it for different reasons. But anyways, that is just some history of diasporic things. Have a great day.